as it is also referred to, was the second Australian finch to be scientifically recorded as early as 1801. It was called the Sydney waxbill because, with its large sealing wax red beak and red brows, it bears a superficial resemblance to the common waxbill of Africa. It is, however, far more closely related to the other finches of Australia, and it is not a waxbill. It is by far one of the most familiar to the general population. It is also the most social one, living in tight flocks. They also like to build nests in thick bush approximately 1.5 or 2 meters above the ground. The cockbirds have more of a blue-grey colour and the hens a brown-grey colour. If you don't have the benefit of comparison, then it is virtually impossible to tell them apart. The chestnut-breasted finch is a beautiful bird with an exquisite pattern in contrasting shades of brown. It is the commonest of the 3 Australian species of manakin or munia. Like all the manakins, they live in large flocks in reed beds. They are quite easy to breed and are particularly comfortable in a group. Success with them is better assured when a number of them are housed in an aviary of suitable dimensions, because the sexes are not easily distinguishable and there is a better chance of getting a pair together in this way. When breeding in a mixed collection, they can sometimes be a little aggressive and interfere with other small seed eaters. The male has a larger head and enjoys displaying his puffed-out feathers when crowing to the female. His mandible is a bit more bulky, whereas her mandible is more refined. His black cheeks are solid black. The male's rump is also a bit brighter than the female's. Unique among the Australian finches is the lovely pictorella pair as seen here. The male on the left and the female on the right. Long regarded as being like the chestnut-breasted finch, a species of the large Munia family occurring rather surprisingly amongst the grass finches. It has recently been considered so distinctive as to warrant a monotypic genus all to itself. Their natural habitat is in hot, dry territory, and they spend much of their time on the ground, where they nest in tussocks of grass. So they need well-drained aviaries, featuring plenty of dry earthen floor space, positioned so as to catch the maximum of sun. Spot the exquisite patterns of minute white spots on their wings and black faces. Like all manakins, their toenails grow long in captivity as seen here, and may need to be clipped from time to time. The cherry or plum-headed finch is an ideal aviary bird which can be guaranteed to live in harmony with its own and any other species that would not attack it. Although it has no bright colour to boast of, the exquisite patterning of its plumage is strongly appealing. It deserves reasonably good aviary conditions, as it is a little sensitive to cold and damp. They like to build a domed-shaped nest just above the ground and do not like nest inspection. They will generally raise their young on a minimum of live food. This species is referred to as being sexually diachromatic because you can clearly see the difference between the cockbird and the hen. The cockbird's dark brown crown and small black bib is clearly lacking in the female, and she also has a white eye line above her eye. Another absolutely ideal aviary bird is the aptly named starfinch. This is one of the more colourful of the Australian finches found in the hot northern parts of that continent, so it should not be subjected to very low temperatures. They are easily sexed by the amount of intense red on the male's head and the rich yellow on his chest. They like to nest in natural bush, but will also sometimes nest in nest boxes and wicker nests. They make very good parents, whether housed as a single pair, in a small aviary or in a flock. In the days when Australian finches were freely exported, there were fewer starfinches amongst them than almost any other, but they bred so well that this rarity has long ceased to be apparent. The numbers of the species in the wild have declined drastically through alterations to their natural habitat. There is a gene defect called xanthochromosome that renders a bird unable to transform the yellow carotenoids in its food into the red carotenoids usually deposited in the feathers or beak. It is only noticeable in birds with red in their plumage or beak, and very rare examples of it have occurred in the wild in a number of finches in Australia and elsewhere. Only in captivity, of course, can stocks of the xanchronistic mutations be systematically built up. A particularly attractive example of this phenomenon is the yellow starfinch, in which the red of the head and the beak is replaced by a particularly attractive shade of buttercup yellow. The male again has far more colouring on its head and chest than the duller-looking female. Fiery red in colour and fiery in temperament, this is potentially the world's most pugnacious finch species, especially towards any bird showing red in its plumage, even if it is twice its size. It will annihilate its opponent by hounding it away from the feeding station, and then attack it in its weakened state. Thus, housing crimson finches as single pairs in small, well-protected aviaries, and removing any offspring before they start to colour up, is recommended. They respond more positively to abundant supplies of live food than any other Australian finch, and under good aviary management are not particularly difficult to breed. The painted finch is another Australian finch with the ideal temperament for an aviary bird, always peace-loving and often tame. Its natural habitat is in very dry areas in the remote interior of the northern parts of the continent, so it was a late comer to bird keeping. Currently, there are very few of these birds in South Africa, and although they are long-lived, they seem to suffer from the reluctance to breed that is associated with continual inbreeding with the population from too small a genetic pool. The cockbird, as seen here, has a bright crimson face and chest, which is lacking in the female. The hen has very little to no red on her mandible. They like to build their nests close to or on the ground. The world's most colourful bird, and for some people the world's most beautiful bird, is the many-hued Gouldian finch, which also comes from northern Australia. It occurs in the wild state in 3 different head colour phases: black, red and yellow, the yellow being extremely rare. The offspring invariably reflect one colour or the other, and the black, red or yellow-headedness is the same as blonde or brunette, blue eyes or brown eyes within one human family. Note the pearlescent tubercles on the mouths of the juveniles. Some people are of the opinion that these are there so that the parents can see their chicks when they are in a dark nest. In the wild, Gouldians often breed in dark, hollow tree trunks. The formation of the Gouldian Finch Society in South Africa has gone a long way in improving breeding results with a sometimes delicate species. Through the 20th century, a number of colour mutations have occurred in the Gouldian finch, altering some of its vibrant colours into soft pastel tones. The breeding of Gouldian finches in a limitless kaleidoscope of colour has become an increasingly popular hobby the world over, as well as in South Africa. Now let's visit the facility of Ivan Higo. It has been ranked amongst the best in the world.
Can I show you the first bird room I mentioned earlier? This is the first one that I constructed. It's made of fancy vibrocrete, if you can call it that, with ceiling and metal structure. Like your vibrocrete walls, this is just a little bit upmarket to what that is. It's fully insulated, the ceiling and everything, to try and control the temperature. The lowest temperature I've had here in winter is 3 degrees, and in summer it can go up to about 38. As you'll see along the front, these are the cages that are those that roll in and out. The idea of the cages coming in and out is the severe temperature drop that I experience in Alberton in winter. The temperature drops purely from the fact when we have snow on the Drakensberg and the wind comes off the Drakensberg, we have severe frosts and cold here. So for the idea of the birds staying outside in that temperature, that worried me. And that's how I came up with the idea of actually moving it. If I can just demonstrate for you quickly what actually happens. The birds, they're presently out at the moment. I roll them in, and the flaps outside will lift up and close them, protect them against the temperature. One thing that I've been particular about when developing the cages and building them is that everything is duplicated. One of the big factors that can kill a Goulian is stress. And everything is identical. So I can move birds from the wooden boxes that are to my left here or to the ones on my right. Everything is the same. Their food stations are in the same place, their drinkers, everything. So for me to move a bird, it does not affect him in the least. He settles down immediately. And that has contributed major to the success I've had in my breeding. As you will notice at the moment, the cages on my right here, I have no birds in. I'm in the process of pairing up. But to my left in the boxes, it's all my major breeding stock from last year, where the cocks and the hens are still separated.
Ivan was asked when he pairs up his birds for breeding.
I'm actually a little bit late. I normally strive for 1st of January, to have them 1st of January. We in the Goulian Finch Society are trying to promote summer breeding, what we call summer breeding. And something that I learned from Craig Zimmerman, our president, is that Ivan, he always said to me, watch your birds. Your birds will tell you when they're ready. And when your birds are ready, put them down. And the more you exercise that, I suggest to people, is the earlier you will get them to breed. So you can have your 2 rounds, because I don't like taking more than 2 rounds out of a pair. Those babies are weaned, they're going through the molt. Half of them are through the molt by the time the cold weather comes. So your fatalities are minimized to virtually 0. I think it's a matter of preference. A lot of people are still adamant that they will not pair up before the end of February, March. We are now in the second bird room that I built. You'll notice it's a lot larger. On my right is my nursery flights, as I spoke about earlier. They're all 2 meter by 750 by 900. When the babies come away from their parents, they go into these flights. And you'll notice down the side, the feeding stations, the water, everything is in the same place. So when the birds start colouring up, and I start separating cocks and hens at an early stage, there is no trauma, there is no stress to the bird, catching them and moving them to another flight. The lighting system that I have in this bird room, like the first one, the main fluorescents go off at night, and I have a night light down the centre. Birds, Goulians in particular, I believe, must have a night light. If there is any disturbance in the night in the breeding season, and somehow the hen is flushed from the nest, sitting on 3-day-old chicks, she will find her way back by the night lights. I've gone to another extreme, that if there is a municipal power failure, I have standby emergency lights. You'll see also to the front here there are some red lamps. These are used in winter as a warming system. They are not infrareds. I started with infrareds, but as they fused, I found the pocket wasn't there to replace them. These are just ordinary 80, 100 watt spot lamps, red spot lamps. They warm the birds and they also promote the molting of the bird. To my left is the breeding cages. Right down, there's 18 down here, whereas the other room has got 15 that roll in and out. You'll notice there's a little hatch at the top, and I would just like to show you where the nest box fits. But before I do that, I would just like to explain to you, if you can show the picture, the different heights of the perches. So if the weather is that good and I leave the birds out at night without bringing them in, you'll notice the front perches are lower than the next one, and again lower than the next one. So if they're left out, the birds come back inside and they naturally roost at the highest point. And that highest point happens to be where the nest box is as well. Should a predator get in and frighten the birds, the chances are that they won't actually get the bird. Now let me demonstrate how. There's a permanent hole in the cage here. All I do is take that little plastic cover off and the nest box hooks on like that. Now this is particularly a good design of nest box. This I learned from the Gouldian Finch Society. They developed it and the birds seem to appreciate and select this box over any other box. It's one that has a little patio, as I call it, on the side with the hole through there where the bird enters. So they come in here and then go inside there. The nest box of this type creates much more darkness, which a Gouldian prefers. Because I breed through the winter months, starting in summer, when I prepare the nests, I put in the tiles that will be necessary for heating the nest box in the winter months. It's 3 tiles connected, as you can see, one to the other. And these I put in first before I put any grass in. I open the box, I thread the wire through. There's a pre-drilled hole in the nest box. Not that difficult, but obviously the wood is swollen a little bit from the washing. Pulling the wire out and positioning the 3 tiles, I end up with a nest box looking like that. The tile does not go on the base or on the top. It's on the 3 sides opposite to the entry where the bird will come in. Once I've done that, I then put in anti-mite, anti-flea, ant and all the bugs that are killed by a spread of some garden dust. I then, using teff or Eragostus grass, I start making the nest. I take the grass, make a ball like so. I then put it inside. Using my fist, I make sure there's a hollow inside. Inspecting all the time to make sure there's sufficient grass at the base and up the sides, because I like to have the tiles protected so that there's not too much cleaning of the nest in between clutches. As you will see, the grass is in there and there is a bit of a hollow formed at the base. What I do now, especially for the young birds, using a scissors, I make sure that the hole is cleared for entry into the nest box. The older birds, it's not really a problem for them because they're sitting there waiting at the moment. I also then clean off. There's a reason why I do this, I'll show you just now. I trim all the excess grass, putting it inside, because the Gouldian, although he rebuilds the nest, he likes loose grass, and if there's a bit of loose grass inside there, it's easy for him to start to build the nest. Remembering always that if the cock has accepted the hen, or if he likes the partner you've given him, he will build the nest straight away. It's up to him then, once he's built the nest, to attract the hen. Okay, that is a nest completely packed, and that's how I present it to the bird. Once I've packed the nest boxes outside, I will bring them into the bird room and prepare to hang them on the respective cages. What I have is a little Perspex plate that closes the nest box hole, which I remove and put to the side in preparation when I have to ring the babies. All I do is take the nest box off and put the cover back so that the birds don't fly out. Then leaning over, I make sure that the hole is lined up. That's it, I tuck the wire away. This is the wire, in actual fact, which connects to the bottom one in winter by a simple stroke like that. We'll see just now the controls for that. In winter, that box would be connected. This is the control system for all the nests in this bird room, and both bird rooms have got the same controls. What we have is the transformer, because it's AC to DC. The AC current is converted to 24 volts, which controls those heater pads you saw a moment ago. This is the nest box with the thermostat in. It's packed exactly the same as the nest boxes for the birds, with TEF and heater pads in there as well. By switching it on, give it a second to warm up, you'll see the numbers come up there, 33. So in actual fact, in this nest box here, the temperature is 33 degrees at the moment. The moment the temperature drops in that nest box to 18 or below in the winter months, this will switch on and all the nest boxes will heat up. The moment it gets to 28 degrees, it switches off again. So there is a constant temperature between 18 and 28 to keep the babies through that critical period when the parents leave them after 10 days. Once having put the nest box in, you will see the display of the cock, the excitement in the bird. He wants to get to the nest box. This is a pair that was paired last year. Up he comes. You can see. You can see the enthusiasm in the cock. He wants to come to the nest. You might ask why I have a white-breasted cock and a purple-breasted hen together. Well, I'm testing her for purity. One of the main objectives that I have in breeding bullions, I would like to be able to have birds as you would find them in the outback in Australia. Pure, no recessive genes in a bird. And by doing this, I will ascertain whether she is carrying the white-breast gene. As you can see, she is also trying to get to the nest box now. Generally, you can tell when your bird's in condition. The hen's beak is much darker. It tends to turn to a black, where the cock will stay pearly white. The reason I clean up the grass at the top of the box before I go and hang them, here's a good example when I know that the cock is building a nest. You'll see the grass is coming over the top. So immediately I know, without touching the nest boxes, that the cock has accepted the hen. So he's building a nest for her. And that's a telltale sign. I'll bring you one nest box and give you an idea. Close up, you'll see all the grass there. She's already laid an egg.
Here you see 2 to 5 day old chicks. And here they are 8 to 11 days old. Note the pearlescent tubercles on its beak. Ivan has a special breeding mix recipe. The mix says 8 cups of plain canary, 4 cups of red manna, 6 cups of jack millet, 3 cups of white millet, 1 cup of Niger. In addition to the seed mix, he also gives sprouted seed and a commercial egg food. His non-breeding mix is 4 cups of plain canary, 6 cups of red manna, which is low in protein, 5 cups of jack millet, 4 cups of white millet, and no sprouted seed, nor egg food.
All my operation, except for their grid, which is on the inside in the bowl, water and seed is managed from the outside. As little disturbance to the birds as possible. To the right here is, you'll see this little red light glowing. It's controlled by that little top.